Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Miss Vanessa. I'm the Children's Services Librarian at the Five Corners Library. I hope you are all doing well and staying safe. Today, February 11th, is a very special day. It is International Day of Women and Girls in Science. Yay! So this day celebrates all of the great things that women and girls have been doing in the field of science. So the first part of this program, we're going to read a book called Add a Twist, Scientist. It's about a young girl who has a lot of questions and is very curious. If you're just like Ada, you have the makings of becoming a great scientist. The second part of this program, we're going to do a very simple science experiment with milk art. So don't go anywhere after the reading. I'm going to share my screen so we can get to Add a Twist Scientist on our Overdrive account. If you want to learn more about International Day of Women and Girls in Science, this page here tells you everything you need to know. It'll be in the description of the program. And just to let you see, this is the science experiment we'll be doing, the milk art. If you are unable to do it now with me, you can always watch this video. It's going to be saved. So you can do your milk art. If you have pictures of the art you use and you end up creating with the milk, send us the pictures and we would love to show them on our social media accounts. So I'm just going to show you how to sign into Overdrive. You go to our website, jclibrary.org, click databases, and it will take you to the databases. Click on books and reading. And here you go, here's Overdrive. So if you are downloading the application on a phone or tablet, you need to have your library card and your PIN number. Once you put that in, you just open the application and you can read. If you're gonna be using this on a desktop or laptop, to access Overdrive, you would need to sign in using your email and the password you create. But I have my Overdrive Libby opened, so I'm gonna start reading Add a Twist Scientist by Andrea Beatty, illustrated by David Roberts. So here we go. Ada Marie said not one word till the day she turned 3. She bounced in her crib and looked all around, observing the world, but not making a sound. She was very quiet. She learned how to climb and made her big break with a trail of chaos left in her wake. So chaos, she made a big mess. Look at this mess. She ran through the day chasing each sight and sound and didn't slow down till she conked out at night. So she conked out at night means she fell out and fell asleep. So she chased each sound and sight and then she conked out at night. So she's tired. And her big brother's saying, look at Ada. She's very high, right? She's high up. Her parents were frazzled, but tried not to freak. They were going a little crazy because Ada was so curious. As Ada grew bigger and still did not speak, clearly young Ada, with lots on her mind, would have something to say when it ought to be said. So she will talk when she's ready, right? So she's looking at all of these things. She's very curious. She doesn't have a lot to say because she's looking at stuff. She's discovering. That's what happened when Ada turned 3. She tore through the house on a fact-finding spree and climbed up the clock just as high as she could. Her parents yelled, stop, as all good parents should, right? So they yelled stop because what? Ada's very high up, and this is dangerous. And look, here's her big brother with his best friend, the cat, saying, look at Ada. What is she doing? She climbed very high. Ada's chin quivered. What does that mean? Is she about to? Yes, it says she's about to cry, but she did not cry. She took a deep breath. Can we take a deep breath with Ada? In through your nose, out through your mouth. Out through your mouth. And she simply asked, why? So her first word was why. It was a question. Why does it tick and why does it tock? Why does a clock tick and tock? Why don't we call it a granddaughter clock, not a grandfather clock? Why don't we call it a granddaughter clock? Why are there pointy things stuck in a rose? What are the pointy things in a rose? Thorns, right? Why are there hairs up inside of your nose? So that's a good question, Ada. I'm gonna look at that and see why there's hair in your nose. She started with why and then with what, how, and when. By bedtime, she came back to why once again. She drifted to sleep, right? As her dazed parents, they just could smile at the curious thoughts of their curious child. who wanted to know what the world was about. They kissed her and whispered, "You'll figure it out." So Ada wants to know all the answers to these questions. Her parents kept up with their high-flying child whose questions and chaos grew up as she did, right? So all of the questions turned from why, what, how, when to bigger questions. What does it do? What is it for? When will this happen? Why does this happen? So Ada's questions, as she got bigger and bigger, got longer and longer. And her parents and big brother, they're trying to help her figure all of the questions out. Even Miss Greer, Ada's teacher, found her hands were quite full when Ada's chaos wreaked havoc at school. But this much was clear about Miss Ada Twist. What does she have? All the great traits of a great scientist. So asking questions and being very curious. And look, it looks like she's doing an experiment with some soda bottles. And what happens when you shake a soda bottle and open it? Whoosh, right? A big mess. So I know Miss Greer is not happy, but look at Ada's friends. They're having fun with the science experiment, right? Ada was busy the first day of spring, testing sounds that make mockingbirds sing, when a horrible stench whoosh, whacked her in the nose, a pungent aroma that curled her toes. Can you curl your toes? I'm curling mine, but you can't see them. "Zowie," said Ada, which got her to thinking, what is the source of that terrible stinking? How does a nose know there's a smell? And does it still stink if there's no nose to tell? So if you have no nose, can you still smell? I wonder. She rattled off questions and tapped on her chin. That's her thinking face. She'd start at the start, at the beginning, where we ought to begin, right? You start at the beginning and then you make your way through. A mystery, a riddle, a puzzle, a quest. This was the moment that Ada loved best. So she's got her experiment going. Ada did research to learn all she could of smelling smells, both stinky and good. One hypothesis, one idea Ada thought could be true. The terrible stink came from Dad's cabbage stew. She tested and tested, but soon Ada knew it was time to come up with hypothesis idea number 2. So this is Dad's cabbage stew, and she's doing an experiment on it. Do you think Dad's going to be happy that Ada messed up his stew? I don't think so. Do you think that might be dinner? Maybe. And Ada's doing all sorts of things with their dinner that might not be a good idea. Then zowie! The stink struck again. What is that stink? Just like that, hypothesis 2, it's caused by the cat. She's saying maybe it's the cat that's stinky. The cat couldn't make such a stink on its own. It needed perfume and some fancy cologne. So young Ada tested and the test was a flop. So she started putting all this perfume and cologne on the cat. Does the cat look happy? No, you should not put perfume or cologne on cats or other animals. They don't like it. And sometimes it can get sick. It can make their skin get irritated. So what did Ada start to do? She's about to put her cat in the washing machine. Is that a good idea? I know that her experiment was a flop. So she started again, but her parents yelled what? Stop! Don't put the cat in the washing machine, Ada. Bad idea. Don't put any animals in the washing machine because they could get very hurt. We don't want to hurt our pets, right? And look at her big brother is very upset because he loves the cats. So he's mad at Ada too. Ada Marie, to the thinking chair. Now by the count of 3. So they want her to go to the thinking chair. Enough, said Mother. That's it, said Dad. Her parents were frustrated, frazzled, and mad. And Ada says, why? Ada questioned. No, said Mom. What? Ada queered. And what did Father say? Go. You've ruined our supper, the cabbage stew, right? And you've made that cat stink. Enough with your questions. Now sit there and think. Think in the thinking chair. She looked at her parents and her heart just melted. It turned to goo. Poor Ada Twist didn't know what to do. So she's sad. She's sad. She just wanted to know where the stink was coming from, right? She sat all alone by herself in the hall And Ada, once more, could say nothing at all. And if you look at Ada, she looks very sad. But then she sat, right? Ada sat and thought about Science and Stu and the cat and how her experience made such a big mess. Her experiments made such a big mess. What does it have to be so? Is that part of success, right? So sometimes in science, you're going to make mistakes, but you have to keep trying. And things can become a mess, but that's part of how you learn and become a success, right? Our mess is the problem. And while she was thinking, what was the source of that terrible thinking? Ada Marie knew what scientists do. She asked a small question and then she asked two. And each of those led to 3 more questions and then 4. As Ada got thinking, she really dug in. She scribbled her questions and tapped her chin. She's doing her thinking face again. She started at why and then at what, how, and when. At the end of the hall, she reached why once again. So she's scribbling on the wall and she's making all of her notes to try and solve her mystery, right? Her experiment. What went wrong with the experiment? Her parents calmed down and they came back to talk. They looked at the hallway and they just had to gawk. They had to look at the hallway wall. No patch of bare paint could be seen. Their thinking chair now was a great thinking hall. So the thinking chair went to a thinking wall and became a thinking hall, right? They watched their young daughter and they sighed. As they did, what would they do with this curious kid who wanted to know what the world was about? They smiled and whispered, you know what? We'll all figure it out. We'll all figure it out with Ada. So instead of fighting with Ada and wondering why she was so curious and had so many questions, they were all going to help her figure them out. So if you see closely here, Dad is reading a book called As If, and her big brother is reading The Art of Science, and they're all helping Ada figure out how to solve her experiments here. And that's just what they did, because that's what you do when your kid has a passion and a heart that is true. They remade their world. Now they're all in the act of helping young Ada sort fiction from fact. She asks lots of questions, right? But how could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist, right? So it's in your heart to ask questions, be curious, and become a great scientist. As for that smell, what happened with that smell? What can Ada Twist do but learn all she can with her friends in grade 2? So now we know Ada's in grade 2. Will they discover the stink that will curl your toes, curl your toes? Well, that is the question. And someday maybe, who knows, right? So science, sometimes you don't get the answer right away, but you keep asking questions and you keep trying to solve it. And one day you might find the answer. So here's Ada thinking, maybe it's this hot dog. We don't know. Maybe one day we'll find out if Ada finds the source of the stinking. The end. Yay. Thank you, Ada. So the second part of this, we're going to be doing our milk experiment with art, right? We're going to do some art in the milk. Thank you for joining me today. Miss Vanessa here, and enjoy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. Send us your pictures of milk art. We would love to post them. Take care. See you in the next clip. Okay, so for this part of our program, we're going to be doing a little experiment with surface tension. What you'll need is some dish soap, 2 bowls, some food coloring, some Q-tips, pepper if you have it at home, it's optional, and some milk. If you have milk with different types of fat, this is whole milk, this has the most type of fat. If you have skim milk, it's less fat. So we'll begin in our next clip and see how surface tension is changed when you add dish soap, pepper, and some dye. So we're gonna add dye to the top of the milk. Green, and you see it's floating. Blue, yellow, and red. So what keeps the dye floating on the top of the milk is the surface tension. And the surface tension, think of it like a bunch of hands all gripping together and keeping the milk and the dye floating on top of it. What'll happen if I touch the soap to the dye, let's see. Look at that. All of the dye starts to separate. And why is that? Why does the dye separate? Well, the dish soap breaks up the surface tension in the milk, it breaks up the fats, and all of the dye starts to spread out. So that's why when you wash your dishes and they're greasy, you add soap and it breaks up all the fats in the oil on your dishes and it washes right off with water. So we're gonna do a little experiment with pepper and see whether or not the milk is colder, what will happen when we add the dye and the dish soap in our next clip. Okay, so now we're gonna add our dye to milk that is cold and has pepper. So this one we're gonna put some pepper in it. And on this side we have the cold milk. So I'm gonna add again some dye here to the one with pepper. And I'll add it to the cold one too, so that way we don't waste time. Let's see what happens when we add our dish soap. So now we'll add it to the one with the pepper first and see how our milk art comes out. Wow, do you see the difference? I think that adding pepper creates extra surface tension, so that way the dye can't spread out as easily as it did before. See, in this one, it's a lot more spread out. Now let's see what happens when we add our dish soap to the cold milk. It's the same way, kind of. The cold milk adds surface tension. It's probably the ice and the molecules are tighter, so the dye doesn't spread out as much when you add the soap. See, the yellow is barely spread out at all. So you can do this experiment with milk that has less fat and see how your art comes out with milk that has pepper in it, and the temperature of the milk. If it's different, your art will come out in all different ways. So please send us your pictures of milk art. We would love to see them and see how your science experiments turn out. So I hope you enjoyed our experiment today with milk art. Happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. Stay curious, ask a lot of questions, and send in your experiments. We would love to see and hear from you. We miss you all. Take care and stay safe.